My co-worker and friend, Jorgelina Venturi, also known as the talent lady, who's sitting 9 feet to my right. She and I gave a presentation at Lockworld about what we called the critical global talent shortage. And there was a great debate. It was really lively, and it was just so short. We didn't have enough time to discuss by any means everything we wanted to say. It could have gone on for hours. So we created the TBO Talent Forum to continue this conversation and to continue what we found to be a thoroughly enjoyable debate and discussion, and to continue it on a monthly basis with a different theme every month, different topics, and different people as well. The idea is normally to have a main speaker and then panelists. Just today, our main speaker is having trouble logging in, but we're working on it. We're working on it. So the idea is that the TBO Talent Forum will have engaging panels and intriguing discussions with leading thinkers and industry leaders. Each month, there will be a different theme, which is really cool. Our theme today is bridging the gap between academia and the localization industry. And the key takeaways that we envisage for attendees of both the main session and the panel are to participate in an engaging panel and an intriguing discussion with leading thinkers. Right? Get involved, express your opinion. There will be a Q&A session both for the main presentation and for the panel. Express your opinions, start debate, network, benchmark, coach, mentor, start friendships, you name it. The sky is the limit. So we're going to be talking about different things every month. We are very open to you reaching out to us and raising your hand and saying, I would like to suggest this particular topic for a future TBO Talent Forum, or I would like to speak about this topic because I'm an expert, or I have something to say, or I just love speaking in public, whatever. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for it to be a participative process. And we're already looking for speakers for our December TBO Talent Forum. So that's both the main presenter and the people on the panel. The December Talent Forum will tentatively be on the topic of work-life balance in the localization industry, which I think is a never-ending topic, as many of these topics are going to be. They're going to be topics that we could talk about for the whole afternoon. So reach out if you are interested. And it's important to note that the TBO Talent Forum is free. So nobody has to pay to attend. So you do have to be able to log in, and that's what seems to be troubling Carrie today. I will introduce Carrie as we continue to wait for her to log in. Summer, were you able to reach out to her?
Nope. I don't see her feedback. Let me double check. You sent an email, right?
Yes, I'll send you her phone number right now.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, Summer, I just sent you Carrie's number, so hopefully we'll get Carrie logged in. So I'll tell you guys about Carrie. She doesn't really need an introduction. Everybody knows her, but nevertheless, her resume is extensive, and I think it's when you have a wonderful. Oh, there she is! Wow, just in time. Welcome, Carrie.
You'd think this is my first foray into using Zoom, and it's not. I'm not sure what happened.
Well, welcome. Welcome. I've been just introducing the Talent Forum, talking about how it got started, and I was just about to introduce you, so your timing is perfect. You arrived at the perfect time. Carrie Livermore Fischer is the Globalization Services Manager at Subway, headquartered in Shelton, Connecticut, and Miami, Florida. Wow, 2 headquarters. She is responsible for all globalization-related strategies for the company. Carrie has over 30 years of localization experience and has held previous localization positions at bodybuilding.com, Hyperion, Oracle, and Transparent Language. She is the 2023 President of Women in Localization and a mentor to many. So a word on women in localization, which I'm sure you have all heard of, but once again, I think it's very worthy to introduce everyone again. Women in Localization is a certified 501 tax-exempt nonprofit. Its mission is to foster a global community for the advancement of women and the localization industry through networking, education, career advancement, mentoring, and recognition for women's accomplishments. Founded in the San Francisco Bay Area in 2008, Women in Localization is supported by thousands of women and men across the globe and local chapters who support members locally. Wow. So welcome, Carrie. We're going to do your main presentation now, and then we're going to shift to questions about your presentation. And once that's done, I will acknowledge you, and then we will shift over to the second half of today's event, which is our panel. And Jorgelina, the talent lady, will introduce the panelists, and there will be a lively debate moderated by Kristen Gutierrez. And then at the end of that debate, there will be questions. So let's rock and roll, Carrie.
Please tell me you can at least hear me. Okay. Marvelous. Now let's see if I can share my screen, and I do have a decent presentation. Let's see if we can figure this out. Share screen. Sure enough. Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to put this on slideshow if I can manage to do that. These work. Okay. Can you see just the slide, or can you see the next slide? I never know how this is going to turn out.
We're not seeing just the slide.
Okay, so we have to do something here, and I need my glasses for it because these little things are so small. Okay, okay. High presenter view, maybe? How's that? Okay. Thank you so much, Charles, for the introduction, for everybody's patience, but also for giving me this platform. This is unique in all aspects. You know, this is your inaugural event. This is my inaugural presentation, I think, about bridging the gap between academia and the localization industry. I did want to kind of warn people that this is a mostly US-centric presentation, because that's where I see a lot of the problems. I think Europe and Asia are kind of ahead of us and have probably already figured this out. And my message is about encouraging synergies between organizations and encouraging students. My whole reason for this was I started thinking about my journey in foreign languages and eventually the localization industry, which I've been in since I was in my 20s, and I'm now in my 50s. I have a degree in French from Northern Illinois University, and my mother kind of despaired of me ever finding a job in terms of, you know, what I loved to do, which was languages, except for teaching. And of course, the CIA showed up at our college as well, looking for the language talent. I've always had the passion for languages. I took 4 years of Spanish in high school, as well as 3 years of French in high school. I took them at the same time. I would have taken another one if they would have let me. In college, I took 2 years of Russian. It's just been my passion. And my dad always told me and my 3 sisters to do what you really love to do. Things will work out. And they did. You know, my sister's very successful. One's a master printer in LA. She has, you know, a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts. One sister was a fashion designer. She designed clothing for Oprah Winfrey and many other famous people. And my other sister's a nurse. So getting back to what I love to do, even though I didn't know I had a future in language, that involve language, I still pursued my passion, and I want to give it back. I want to make academia aware that there are jobs. There is a bright future for those who are truly interested in languages. That's the whole point of me kind of diving into this this new arena for me. So what I'd like to talk about is kind of the great unknown to academia anyway, which is called the localization industry, which a lot of us know a lot about. Some problems facing foreign language teachers, and what can we do? What can we do about it? So the great unknown is the localization industry, at least for academia, at least that's what I've found. So to date, in 2023, I've given 3 presentations to academia. I reached out to Boise State University earlier this year. That's my local university. I'm in Boise, Idaho. And I realize it's not the most populated state, you know, in the United States, but my gosh, we have language programs all over the world. I gave a small presentation, talked about the localization industry to ACFL, some ACFL board members. ACFL is the American Council of the Teaching of Foreign Languages. And then I also gave a presentation to the Idaho, just that was a couple weeks ago, the Idaho Association of Teachers of Foreign Languages. That was on a Saturday, a couple Saturdays ago. But not one person, faculty member, student, had ever heard of our industry. So to me, there is a disconnect. I realize that this might not be the case in states like California, where we've got NIST and we've got other resources available to us. But I think for the majority of the United States, academia is not aware of our industry. I got this text yesterday from my son's school. So he's in the West Ada School District, goes to Centennial High School. And it was about, hey, open house for career and technical education, CTE, coming up this Thursday. And, you know, if your child is interested, here's the open house. Why don't we have open houses for language studies? I've never seen that, actually, now that I think about it, even when I was a kid. We seem to be pushing, and it's 100% valid, STEM. So that stands for, I think, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Super important. I'm not saying that STEM is not important, and it should be pushed, especially to girls. And that's been the push, at least in the United States, is to get girls interested in technical stuff, you know, coding and things like that. It's never talked about how you can have a very lucrative, prosperous, and fun career studying languages, and you can. So again, it's just, I think, the unknown, because the localization industry has jobs, and I know we're kind of on a downturn right now, but as we all know, or if you've been in the industry for a while like I have, it ebbs and flows just like everything else. So I just grabbed this. I thought it was fascinating. So Slater sends out a weekly mailing on Fridays. This wasn't a job posting. This was one of their articles. And it was about, you know, an insurance company in London who is trying to hire a trilingual localization professional to, you know, work with their AI group to to help them with their language models and their AI system. This was kind of a new job for me. I'd never heard of it, but we're ever changing, ever growing. There's always new jobs in the localization industry. The bottom 2 are from, you know, womeninlocalization.com. I'm going to plug it. Of course, I'm the president. We have a job board. And on the one side, coming from the, you know, LSP side, we've got, you know, business development consultants who has to speak German. And on the right, hey, Netflix is hiring in France, no less. Sign me up. We have jobs available, and they are important jobs. And you can certainly make a living doing these jobs. And yet, the localization industry, I feel, puts up barriers, especially to the entry-level students or people just wanting to change careers and looking at the localization industry, wanting to get in. How can a recent graduate get an entry-level position if the companies are requiring 2 to 3 years of experience? Yes, there are internships, which definitely counts, I think, as experience. But I don't understand why our industry can't be more open to taking people with no experience. And I know it's a deep dive topic for another time, but I wrote an article in Multilingual, which I think is going to be published soon because they asked me for my address to send me some free copies. So I think it's going to be in the next one. Because when I think back to when I first started in the industry and it was considered a cottage industry, there weren't very many people in it at that point. I had to train everybody. You know, I hired people with communications degrees, you name it. You know, a few people had language degrees, but nobody knew about localization. I had to train them. And you can certainly hire people with the skill sets you're looking for and be able to train them for what you want them to do. Another example is one of my mentees. She just graduated with, her master's in multiple languages, and Polish being one of them, and she's a native speaker and she's in Poland. I had her do a little pilot, and she doesn't have any certifications. She has her degree, but there's no certification, there's no experience. I had her translate a whole page of something from Subway, which is not easy. Our content has all kinds of weird stuff in them. Subway has Yes Way and MVP rewards, just kind of Subwayisms, as I call them. And she translated it into Polish, and I had our internal native speaker, Polish reviewer, look at it, and she said, the feedback I have is it's perfect as is. I don't have any edits. This person clearly knows, what they're doing. And I thought, okay, there are ways, if we're willing to take down this 2 to 3 years experience barrier, there are ways to get wonderful people into this industry. So I did a little bit of research, and I know this is really hard to read. I can't read it without my glasses anyway, but that little graph on the left really shows the language enrollment decline. And the first year there on the left is 1960, and it ends in 2016. But I can guarantee you that trend is still going down. We're not seeing the language enrollment that we did way back when. And that's a problem, because that in turn decreases funding for all the language departments in just about every school, which means for us, fewer people are entering the localization industry because we don't have the people, going after their passion or, what they're really good at, which is languages. And so we're seeing fewer people enter our industry, and that concerns me. A lot of us old people, are eventually going to be retired, and who's going to take our places? We need a circle of life here, if you know what I mean. And nobody's eating anybody. I'm not referring to the Lion King, but we need an ecosystem put in place. And why aren't students enrolling? And why aren't parents encouraging their kids, hey, if you're good at German, you really want to learn it, go for it? Because this is what they're being told of why it's important to study languages in high school. Get credits and qualifications to help you move forward. Well, that's great, but that's true for just about any subject. Improve memory and creative thinking. I get that. I understand that. better job prospects. How about a lot of job prospects? But because whoever wrote this didn't know about the localization industry, they didn't mention that. You know, embracing new cultures and making new friends, absolutely. I love this because it came from someone trying to sell me something, right? So language learning is more accessible than ever. It's true, we've got apps, we've got, you know, everything available to us under the sun. This one happens to be Newsdoll, which I had never heard of before, but it's an online language tool. So yeah, so learn it, right? And have fun. I'm guessing that most parents are not encouraging their kids to have fun, maybe in high school, maybe they are. They're encouraging them to pick a career choice that's going to give them a future. And because parents don't know about the localization industry, they're not telling their kids about it. When I presented at the Idaho Association of Teachers of Foreign Languages a couple weeks ago, I got a taste of what it would be like to change a curriculum, which is, you know, hierarchy like you wouldn't believe, I guess, you know, the education system. I'm not in it, I don't know. But change, I think, probably comes from the parents. And so one of the teachers who got all jazzed up, I mean, all the teachers were super excited about the presentation after it was done. The first question I got in the presentation was, what is the localization industry? Before I could even get started. But anyway, one of the teachers said, you know, we need to hit up the parents, and the parents are going to make the change. Coming up with a little graphic about the localization industry and what you can do in it, you know, something, a quick hit. But anyway, ideas are already starting, you know, to flow from the three, you know, presentations that I've been giving. So the reality, you know, is 90% of US employers are asking for multilingual talent for their workforce and their jobs. And yet only 44 states are reporting a shortage of language educators because there's no students. This comes from the Language Connects Foundation. The Language Connects Foundation is a nonprofit. It's the nonprofit arm of ACTFL, which I mentioned earlier, which is the Association of, American Council of the Teaching of Foreign Languages. So LCF is a brand new nonprofit arm of ACTFL, and that's where this came from. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about LCF. They have formed to elevate language education profession, promote language learning, support our language educators, broaden the access to language learning, and have deeper connections across communities and cultures. So we're really here to uplift language educators and champion language education. And if you notice, I said we. Another inaugural, if I can say that word, it'll be a miracle, event is happening next year. And that is the 2024 board for LCF has formed and is meeting. And I was voted in to the board for next year. So I'm really excited because I feel like there's another connection here that needs to be made. This is one way to do it. Academia, localization industry, LCF. So what can we do? And I apologize for the dumb memes. I'm a terrible PowerPoint creator, as you can see. It's very dry. And when I Googled, you know, thinking images, this is what came up. I love the baby, and I've used him a few times. But so some ideas. This is a total brain dump. And I try and figure it out in later slides. But, you know, women in localization, can't help but think of that first. We have 27 chapters, hopefully soon to be 30 by the end of the year. That's 30 areas in the entire world where we have chapters. where we can have the chapter reach out to local academia, again, junior high, high school, universities, colleges, and, you know, it's in the Americas, it's in Asia, and it's in Europe. We hope to open chapters, you know, in Africa and the Middle East next year. Again, different presentation, but we can also grow under global community. We have lots of like mini companies, if you will, and one of them is the education and coaching group. And it's funny because if I look at the metrics of all the virtual events that global community has put on in 2023, the most attended events were the ones performed or given by the education and coaching group, because they are aimed at new people coming into the industry. How do you get a job? How do you get experience? That's what people want to learn about. Wouldn't it be cool if we could maybe form a formal task force, partnering with, I don't know, NIMSY, CSA, Slater, or local institute, and somehow create a list of volunteers in every state and every country to present to academia. Have a template, have a, you know, something that is consistent. It's a consistent message. Loc Institute has that Edu in Loc, which I think is really cool. That I believe it's a track in every Loc world now. Some local outreach. Again, have the Loc professionals in every region, country, whatever, reach out to their local junior highs, high schools, universities, colleges, and offer to present in front of the faculty and students about the localization industry possibilities. What if we created some kind of open drive with presentation templates for anyone to use? I can't help but think of a parallel when Wayne Borland and friends created the Globalization Strategy Handbook, guidebook, and they posted it on GitHub. It's free. Anybody can look at it, download it. It's really cool. This little asterisk is, I did, you know, this is my presentation. Again, look at it. It's terrible. Somebody can do a better job. But it's only 15 slides, but I wanted to highlight 3 of them, because I talk about the localization industry ecosystem, so people can kind of put jobs to what I'm talking about. So we've got the buyers, we've got the sellers, we've got the industry research firms, and we have volunteer opportunities. And there's probably like 10 mini circles that can go around these, you know, the localization ecosystem. I just picked, I think, areas for opportunity where people could envision themselves in. And then you know, over on the right, you know, hey, what can a graduate do as a localization buyer? One of me, right? What can they do as a seller? What could they do in one of the industry research firms? And what could they do within the volunteer operation, which is huge? And, you know, I'm all about volunteering because that gives people experience as well. And it's real world experience. I'm going to go back up. And I'm oversimplifying everything, right? But I'm just throwing out ideas, and I really want to work in 2024 to make this happen and beyond. Come on, Winnie, let's take the MISS model and create other locations. I'm sure this was thought of by other people, but we've got one feeder school, right, for the localization industry, and we need a lot more. The East Coast and Midwest locations would benefit from a MISS, and I can't even imagine what it took to create MISS in the first place. And my apologies if you don't know what MISS is. It is Middlebury Institute of International Studies. It's located in Monterey, California. Beautiful location, but not everyone can get there. So we need MISS schools everywhere, in my opinion. Hey, let's create programs with LCF, as I mentioned, which is the nonprofit arm of ACFL, and the first board convenes in 2024. I'm very excited. maybe we create a program or a certification class for Loc newbies. And I know other companies have this, but maybe, something that LCF can fund. I definitely think that LCF needs to partner with ALC Bridge, and not only because they have acronyms up the wazoo. I definitely see a synergy here. So ALC is the Association of Language Companies, in case you haven't heard of that. And the Bridge, the chair of ALC Bridge just happens to be one of our panelists today. So I'm hoping she has things to say about it. But it's a collaboration between employers, educators, and people with language skills. They've got their own job board. I looked at it last night just to see. It was really cool. A lot of job opens for Language Line, but it's helping professionals, right, for careers in the localization industry. I just feel like there's a missing link, and that is to academia. Beyond Miss, we need to figure this out. So we'll go past this because I talked about it. So then I'm like, okay, I've named all these organizations. How do they get connected? Who needs to connect to whom? Like I said, LCF and ALC Bridge, I definitely see a big connection here. I also see, LCF connecting potentially with Edu and Loc, presenting at every single Loc World, and vice versa. There has to be, I should probably do the two arrows, right? Where Edu in Loc helps Language Connects Foundation. Women in Localization, we're already connecting to academia through different programs. I probably should have put arrows to everybody, right? Because I think there's going to be some synergies with all of us. But putting it all together, so what I would love to see is the localization industry partnering with academia. Somehow, the Loc industry becomes part of academia's curriculum, all the way down to the junior high level, when children are first exposed, at least in the United States, to formal language education. That would make the language student enrollment increase. At the same time, I think the Loc industry needs to lower our barriers for entry-level people. And then the industry thrives, education gets back the funding and the resources they need. And, in the meantime, we solve world peace. I don't know. I know this is pie in the sky and it's very simplistic, but it's a starting point. So I believe that's my last slide before I meme out again, right? I love Boromir. I'm sorry. I'm Lord of the Rings huge fan. And yeah, you just can't say thank you, which is simply with a meme. So let's continue the conversation. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you search Carrie Livermore Fischer, you will find me. And I think that's it. So I will stop sharing if I can figure out how to do it without my glasses, and I can't. There it is. Okay, stop sharing.
Well, thank you very much, Carrie. That was very insightful, and you've opened up today's talent forum, and you may have opened up a can of worms or two as well, which I think is part of the process of a lively debate. We are going to take questions from the audience that we've got. A few have come in. So would we want to give the microphone to Kenya so she can make her question?
Kenya, you are good to go.
Yeah, now I'm good to go. I am at the university level and I couldn't agree with you more. I'm at Carnegie Mellon and I'm at the a STEM-focused university that does have some marvelous arts and humanities programs. But I think I've been a language professor for more than 30 years, and I can say that there is still a very huge problem with the way that language gets taught, both at the school level and at the university level, because it seems to me that people aren't seeing the job market out there, and they're still teaching material sort of for material's sake, as if you were going to go get a PhD in literature and stuff. It's really, which I love literature, and that's what I did, but I also realized that I had to branch out and learn new fields. I'm teaching in translation now myself. I'm a translator. I'm not a localizer, but I'd like to learn about it. But I really feel that that connection with ACTFL, with the high school and the college professors, and maybe having some subcommittee working on what curriculum is like now, and what could be added to it, how these two fields could be melded a little bit better. It would make it much more reasonable than to say to students, I'm at a school with technology U, basically, and we have a lot of foreign students, a lot of our bilinguals who are even sometimes trilinguals. But if the students are interested in language, but want to be guaranteed that they're going to be working in their other field in technology or whatever, software analysis, we need to give them something like that earlier on, and show them that it isn't just utilitarian, but you have to know more than language to be a good localizer anyway. I mean, it's certainly about much more than language, and that's something that gets missed along the way. So I would like to see some kind of a curriculum committee, kind of to sit with what people do and what you guys do, and how we might be able to create units that introduce students to this world of localization and translation, other things like that, interpreting. That's
I
it.
think a lot of it
We live in a
exists.
very
You're absolutely
lingual
right.
place.
Winnie is nodding her head frantically, and she's had to do it. Miss, that's what Miss is all about.
Yeah.
That's now a step. Yeah,
I
curriculum.
also, I mean, we can't ignore that we live in a country that has a long history of perceived monolingualism, even if it wasn't really true in history. And that's something that it's hard to work against. It's hard to focus on that, especially depending on what background these students are coming from. So I think that's where we have to get them here in the classroom, and show them what can be done, and also at the high school level and the junior high school level. But that's ACTFL, and MLA is another place where you could be going for this. If
Right.
digital humanities can make it, localization can make it into the curriculum.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple more questions, but the next one I wanted to go to was Kit Hall. Do you want to make a comment, Kit?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Kit Hall, director of the Language Connects Foundation, and I am incredibly grateful for the opportunity to thank Carrie publicly for her amazing introduction to you all of the foundation, and of course for her upcoming board service. And as Carrie so beautifully summarized, we are here to uplift language education and language education as a profession, and really support the transformative power of language learning. So we look forward to collaborating and partnering with organizations as appropriate. And I again appreciate Carrie's suggestions about where to start. And I would love to stay connected and kind of keep these conversations going with all of you. So thanks for the opportunity to say hello, Charles.
Thank you, Kit.
Well, thank you very much, Kit. Gosh, I was going to say that I can remember when I started out at university studying languages in 1993, 30 years ago. And it was an amazing experience, but so many people at that time questioned me, as to what I was planning to do with my life. with languages, and was I going to do something else like a business degree and languages, or something along those lines? You know, don't just do languages. But it seems to me that the language industry, whether it's teaching, translating, localizing, project managers, localization engineers, it's pretty much full employment industry, with a lot of passionate and committed people and teams and organizations, a real
Uh-oh.
positive vibe. It's so strange that there's
Charles
a
froze, but
disconnect.
yes, agreed.
Yeah,
There we
there's
go.
a
You're back.
disconnect between the industry, you know, and the positive vibe and the need for people, and what maybe students are perceiving as out there, when they're done, you know, when they finish. Okay, we have more questions. We have a question from Pablo Lino. You ready?
Hello, Carrie. I'm ready now. Yeah. Thank you. I couldn't stop nodding with your presentation and listening to you, because I have always thought that there will never be any senior, you know, associate without juniors. And my question is, do you see this only happening in the United States, or have you heard or learned about different experiences in other countries, perhaps with bridging this gap in a different way, or having a different approach to this? Thank you.
I don't know about APAC. I know about Europe only because previous life at Hyperion Software, as it was called back then, I was asked to open a language, facility. So we were going to take all of our localization in-house, including, engineering, the linguist, yada, yada. It's like a few companies have done. JD Edwards did that. And there's a few others actually existing today. So the government guys in Ireland, because that's where I had chosen, right? I looked at all the countries within Europe, and they said Ireland might be the best place. So they took me to universities in Dublin and other areas where you could get, you had course, this was a long time ago. So this was probably 23 years ago. Even back then, Ireland had, you could get, degrees in internationalization, localization, engineering. You could get degrees in the localization kind of field, because these, again, were feeder universities. So Dublin just became this incredibly international city, because they offered these classes and these degrees. And I don't know about the rest of Europe at this point. It may be that, a lot more countries have opened up and have these classes, but back in the day, it was Ireland that offered these things. So that's why I said they're kind of way ahead of us in some ways. But that's the only one I know about.
Great. Well, we have questions from 3 more people. We're going to go to Sue Ellen Wright, and then we're going to go to Stefan Huey. I think I got that pronunciation right. And then Mariana Guedes. So Sue Ellen Wright, you are up next.
Hello. Why did you leave out all the other universities that are diligently teaching master's degrees and certificate programs in translation and localization?
I didn't know about them. That's great.
Well, you didn't do very much research then. I'm sorry. Kent State University has been giving master's degrees in translation and localization since the mid-90s. The University of North Carolina at Charlotte has an excellent program. There are certificate programs at many other universities. Please, before you give this highly flawed, I'm sorry, what you're saying about the need for links between universities And the localization industry is absolutely true, but you will find, if you scratch into this, that these universities I've just mentioned have intimate links with contacts in the localization industry. We attend localization industry conferences. We are involved in the international standards and in ASTM standards for translation and interpreting. We teach our students to use these programs, and we have constant placement of our one reason maybe why you don't see the internships, because the internships are they're going to MIIS, and they're going to Kent State, and they're going to Charlotte, because those people walk in the door. They don't have to be trained. They walk in the door and say, I'd like you to do this project. They sit down and they do it because they know how. They've been trained how. So your message is good, but for goodness sakes, get out there and find out what resources are available in the industry. There are many universities out there that aren't doing this, but I know many universities who are at least offering a few courses at the undergraduate level. We offer a whole undergraduate program. We have
That's
a
great.
BS in translation. We have a PhD in translation studies. That's probably all I need to say. But
Thank you. That's good to know that there's a few more out there. Wonderful.
well, there's more than you think.
Good.
I could cite the University
Thank you.
of Ohio in Athens.
Thank you very much, Sue Ellen. Yes, I'm sure there are many more, much more going on than any of us can personally be aware of on our own. So yes, thank you very much. We're now going to go to Stefan Huey. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing your surname right, but you can tell us how it's properly pronounced. Stefan?
You're right on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. You're right on. Stefan Yuli is my localized name in the United States. If you really wanted to try the Dutch way, it'd be Stefan Huigen, but I typically don't torture people with that in the United States because that usually doesn't end well. I had a question. I'm surprised the word artificial intelligence hasn't come up yet. We're, an hour in? It typically has by now. And I have an AI and Loc newsletter in which this type of question comes up all the time, because I think our industry, like many others, is in flux and is certainly affected by artificial intelligence. And people want to know what their careers are going to look like in 1, 2, and 5 years with the advent of this new technology. And one of the things that I think about that is that artificial intelligence essentially was invented through localization, and it's large language models that have essentially opened up the way to the developments that we've seen in the last year or two. And I was wondering, Carrie and other panel members, whether you thought that maybe we should do a better job in hitching our wagon to that medium, because certainly I think there's a lot of interest in developing artificial intelligence. Since we have that intimate connection because of language, there might be an opportunity in academia to push for new ways, and to at the same time provide people that are interested in localization with new job opportunities and career opportunities in the field of artificial intelligence combined with the field of localization. What do you think of that?
I do. It was one of the first questions that I got from a student when I presented at Boise State University. They're like, well, what does AI play? What role does AI play in the localization industry? So yes, it's a question that they all want answered once they find out about the localization industry. So yeah, as part of the, I don't know, curriculum subcommittee or something like that, AI is definitely part of the conversation. You're right, it's not just about an aptitude or a passion for languages. We have to include all aspects of the
And
localization.
I think the more we can really fold our industry into that new movement, the better it's going to be to attract people as well, because this is moving forward. It's what everybody's going to be interested in, and we're at a point at this time where there aren't really a lot of academic courses developed that teach artificial intelligence and its connection to languages, so to speak. So there's an opportunity there for me. I just wanted to lay
Thank
that out
you.
on the
I
table
love
for you.
it.
Thank you for answering. All right.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you, Carrie.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic because AI, if we don't embrace it, could well be perceived as what yet another wave of scaring people away from the profession. Because your mom or your dad or your granddad is going to say to you when you're 18 years old, why study languages when AI is going to do that? So either we embrace it in some way or another, or it may accentuate this process that we've been talking about. We have a question now from Mariana Guedes.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, my name is Mariana Guedes. For those that don't know me, I used to be event manager at me. So nice to see you again, Carrie, Winnie, everybody. I graduated in 2022, and today I am manager for Verizon, leading the Spanish brand of Verizon in the United States. So I am very aware of localization, project management. I wanted to say that sometimes I feel like the problem here is about prestige. It's not great to say, but sometimes people say, oh, you're going to learn languages, what you're going to do with your life, right? Especially with what the Stefan is saying, AI is coming, right? And everybody knows that ChatGPT and all these DeepL machine translation technologies are coming. So everybody's like, what I'm going to invest time in learning a language when, I could be replaced in 5 years. And I feel that sometimes that's where we need to start the conversation, is where this is going to take us as a career, how we can tell in a curriculum to the next generation of people that they're going to have jobs that are going to make a lot of money to do. What I've been doing from my point of view is being actually talking to project managers that are really not in the localization industry. However, they are very aware, I guess, when they go into global projects that something is missing. And that something that is missing is usually related to localization and culture, but they don't know. And I think that's where we need to start, because people get very excited about being project managers because the prestige that comes with that type of job. So I was wondering how we can like make sense of this, right? From that perspective, I think that's where we can actually have a good conversation and get people interested in our industry.
Okay. That's a good point.
Thank you, Mariana. Now we have our last question or statement, or question and statement from Diego Cresceri, always present. Hi, Diego.
Hello.
Hey.
I wasn't expecting to talk since it was just a comment. To answer what Carrie was saying before, we have the very same problem in Europe. Few exceptions. Dublin is great. In Italy, we have one particular university which is really, really great and advanced. But honestly, we are not able to attract students anymore to our industry. And in my opinion, this is because we are still talking about translation. And translation is something that is already being replaced by AI and post-editing. We should really change that. Just a brief comment on this.
Related to Stefan's comment, it's not just about translation, right? It's everything in our industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So, Diego, what do you mean in addition to translation? Are you talking about university courses in project management, in localization engineering? Where do you
Well, let me
see
give
that
the
going?
example of one Italian university, which is Forlì, Bologna. They have a course in language and technologies. And I had a couple of interns every year in the last 3 years from that school and from that course, and they're just amazing, like amazing. They can do much more than I would ever be able to do with the tools, with all the AI and all the technologies that we have. They've been doing really great. They're doing programming. They're working with the language, of course, but they're doing really much more. And this is what we all need. It's not really translation. I could not convince my parents, if I go back, to send me to a translation school, and I would not want my daughter and my son to go to a translation school. That's for sure.
Wow. Gosh, Diego. So you're saying language and technology together.
Well, that's just one example. I mean, we can find many other ways to name it, but really not translation is easily replaced in our minds by Google Translate. And we all know that Google Translate will not replace us, because we don't just do translation. We do much more. We do cultural awareness, we do adaptation, we do subtitling, we do really many, many things that are always unspoken in our industry. And if we don't change this, we will have hard times in getting the new generation into our industry. And it's a beautiful industry. I'm so passionate about it. It's a beautiful one. So many different roles, so many different tools and workflows, so many different things you can do. We talk about bridging the gaps in cultures, and we still talk about translation. This is really not, I mean, who would have a passion about translation? It's, come on. We all use Google for translation, but we do much more.
Changing the narrative.
It's
really interesting. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Diego. So no picture of you with your cool glasses today?
I cannot, I guess, get in with the video. I'll send you one, Charles, next time. But thank you for organizing this.
Carrie, we're at time. Would you like to make a closing remark or a summary before we move on to the panel?
I just want to thank everybody for their input. It's all been very helpful, very constructive, and I just look forward to continuing the conversation.
That's excellent. That's what this is all about. It's continuing a conversation. There's no way that we could pretend to resolve anything in a 1-hour presentation with some questions. We're just stirring things up, getting those creative juices flowing, creating connections, and bouncing ideas around. Okay, well, thank you so much, Carrie. That was wonderful. I really appreciate it. That was the first time we had a presentation in our first TBO Talent Forum. So I'm so grateful for you for breaking the ice. Yes.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
now,
Michael.
yeah, thank you. And now we're going to move on to our panel discussion. And I'm going to hand over to Jorgelina Venturi, the talent lady. She's on mute. But she's going to unmute herself because she's in charge of muting, and she's going to present the panelists.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really amazing to see everyone. Well, we have an amazing group of people here, but I'm going to introduce to our lovely moderator, which is Kristen Gutierrez. She's a host of a popular LinkedIn live series of confident leadership, and also an international keynote speaker and a best-selling author of Be a Better Sales Leader. So thank you, Kristen, for being part of this amazing team here. We also have Summer Zhao. She's a highly dedicated professional, currently excelling as the Global Localization Manager, soon Within the marketing department, Summer plays a key role in overseeing the intricate process of localizing content across diverse platforms, including web, blog, and e-commerce channels. With STEM experience, Summer specialized in the nuanced art of localization, a critical aspect of modern business expansion. So thank you, Summer, for being here as well.
Just as well, we're doing this on Zoom and not on Google Meet.
We have Kathleen Diamond here as well. She's a consultant, entrepreneur, and a business leader in the language services industry. In 1979, she founded Language Learning Enterprises, LLE. She's recognized as an early pioneer in telephone interpreting. In 2009, Kathleen negotiated the sale of LLE to Sierra Con International, a language service leader in Tucson, Arizona. In 2018, Burke Herbert Bank and Trust Company in Alexandria elected Kathleen to their board of directors. Kathleen volunteers her time advocating for the importance and relevance of language services as a member of the stakeholder assembly of interpreting safe AI, as a member of at large of ASTM F43 language services and products. She represents the US through the American National Standards Institute to ISO, the International Standardization Organization for Translation, Interpreting, and Related Technology. And she is also a member of the Association of Language Companies, ALC. She earned her MA, MBA from the University of Florida. And she's an alumna of IES Abroad, Nantes, France. She's fluent in both Spanish and French, and she's proudly supported scholarship at both UF and the IES Abroad. So thank you, Kathleen, for being here as well. I'm going to introduce Winnie now, Winnie He. She has worn many different hats in the language industry. She can tell more about it. She's a language instructor, translator, interpreter, professor of interpretation, senior executive, and consultant. She's currently a career advisor at the Middlebury Institute of International Students at Monterey. In her business career, she has established and managed businesses in the US, Latin America, Canada, UK, and China. As an educator, she aims to connect language students with the abundance of career opportunities in the language industry and to advocate for curriculum innovation in line with future talent needs. She earned her master's degree in translation and interpretation from the Middlebury Institute of International Study at Monterey. She's a board member and the secretary of the board for California Healthcare Interpreting Association, as well as Women in Localization. She's the founding member of the Interpreting Safe AI Task Force. Thank you, Winnie, for being here as well. And last but not least, we have Lucrecia Harav. She is the Business Development Director at TBO, also a PMI certified professional with over 12 years in the industry. She played a key role in establishing offices in Ukraine and Vietnam for TBO. Her passion for volunteers shines through Gala member programs, Women in Localization Argentina, and NIMSI Localization Influencer, where she contributes to the growth and development of the community. She just got back from maternity leave because she's a proud mom of twin boys, amazing twin boys, really cute. Back to you, Kristen, now.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to Carrie for a very insightful presentation, and Jorgelina for the introductions, and Charles for everything. I would like to actually have us start out level setting. And I'll ask each panelist, how did you get into this industry? Because for me, it wasn't on my radar, and I am from Indiana. So there is something to be said about that. It wasn't on my radar in college. I didn't study linguistics. I needed a job, and SDL was looking for an inside salesperson. And so as we frame this panel discussion for the next 30, 40 minutes, we want to make sure to look at all aspects, which is why these panelists we have are so well-rounded, because it's not just about translators or interpreters and the linguist side. It really is about executives and everybody throughout the supply chain, right? Project managers, engineers, and the entirety of the industry needing more talent. So that's me. Winnie, I'll just kind of go in the order that I see everybody here. But yeah, how did you, hi, welcome, and how did you get into our industry?
Okay, it started in 3rd grade. I was born and raised in Taiwan, and when it was really a 3rd world country. And in my elementary school was and still is next to our airport, the international airport. So in 3rd grade, every Wednesday afternoon, and we have a Chinese calligraphy class, and I would look out the window. I see a big Pan Am aircraft leaving. And I always look at those little windows, and I thought, who are these people and where are they going? And so later on, when I got into 7th grade and started to study English, I felt the language will be a way to link me with the outside world and help me see the world. And that's how it got started. Daydreaming in 3rd grade.
I love that. I love that, right? So Winnie has big goals. I love this. So Lucretia, you're next on my slide. Tell us, how did you get into the industry?
Thank you, Christine. This is going to sound strange, but I was actually Charles' baby's nanny. And I spent 2 years being their nanny. And one day I don't know, I just wanted to get out there, you know, I wanted to see the world. And I talked to Charles and I told him, Charles, I really, really, really love your kids, but I want to do something different. And he was incredible. There was a position to be a project coordinator at TBO. So I started doing that 12 years ago. And yeah, that's how I started.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that personal moment with us. Summer, what about you? How did you come into our industry?
Yeah, sure. I was born and raised in China. You know, multilingual has been, you know, I learned English when I was really, really young, like 5 years old. And it all started accidentally. I landed a job as a translator, and my colleagues were the ones who opened my eyes, and they said, oh, why don't you consider studying localization at MEAS for a master degree? And you know what, like I took their advice to heart, and I enrolled and earned my master degree. And then eventually I landed a job as a project manager, a localization project manager. So yeah, this is how I started.
This is so great. And Kathleen, right before I come to you, I want to say for all of the people watching, when you share about this TBO Talent Forum on LinkedIn, tell us and tell your community, how did you get into the industry as well? Because it does give us really great perspective to know that we're coming in at all different angles, right? So Kathleen, last but certainly not least, over to you. How did you come into our industry? You are on mute, my friend.
let's get unmuted first of all. This is such an amazing situation here. And Winnie, you're not going to believe another connection that you and I have. We've known each other a long time, but I am the daughter of monolingual parents, one a Hoosier from Indiana and the other from upstate New York. But they married, and my father, who had been a pilot during World War II, was very much in love with aviation. So when it came time for him to go out and find a job, he said, I'd like to be in aviation. And my mother said, fine, but you're going to stay on the ground this time. So he took his first job at Pan American World Airways, and they were posted to Miami, Florida, which is where I was born in June. And by November, we were living in Panama. And my father had 35 years of a career with Pan Am. And so I learned all of my languages, well, certainly my Spanish and my English, from that amazing childhood that I have. And I don't think I've ever told these stories before, and certainly not in such a public forum, but Pan Am is the reason, I guess I'm now going to have to say that's why I'm in this industry, because I grew up, I didn't know that American girls didn't speak more than one language until I went home to Indiana to see the grandparents, and they'd say, good heavens, this is our cousin from the jungle. So
oh
that's,
my goodness. Kathleen, we all need to have a cup of coffee with you now.
Yes.
Hear more about that. I'm going to come first to you for our question. And again, these questions are going to, like Carrie's presentation was so, it was filled with so much insight, right? And every panelist here has their own unique perspective. And I know Jorgelina introduced all of us, but think about threading a little bit more of your background into the couple of questions that everybody gets to answer so that we really understand where your perspective comes from. So Kathleen, tell us about the ALC bridge, but also from the perspective of how employers, whoever that means, right, can communicate what their language industry talent requirements are so that the curricula of the schools can be improved. But I know that's a loaded question, but let's start there. And I know you're the woman to answer that.
Thank you, Kristen. And I want to start, first of all, Charlie, thank you for inviting me to speak today. And Carrie, we got to talk. Winnie had said to me, you must meet her. And now that I've met you, now we got to work to do. Because I have come all through my life with this incredible frustration that the large populations don't understand the value of being able to communicate with others in other languages than their maternal language. So for me, the ALC bridge is all part of a professional path that has taken me. It took me from my master's degree in French literature, 16th century, Carrie. So, very not useful on the market. And so I came into the industry professionally as an entrepreneur. There were no jobs for me, so I created jobs. And I've spent my life, professional life, creating jobs in the language services industry. And have been an active member of the Association of Language Companies. So the origin story is that we were in Carmel. It was a retreat. There were owners of companies together in a small room. And what's your pain point? What's your big problem? And around the room, very quickly, it was our pipelines for global talent are dry. We are concerned about our ability to hire linguists and non-linguists who can work in our industry. So we're sitting there, and in the room, we had excellent representation of large companies and small companies, and Language Line was one of them, and then a series of other small companies as well. And so I kind of just sort of casually said, well, I think we really should be talking to the academic community. I think that's where we got to go. Silence for about 2 seconds. finger pointed, Kathleen, you're it. It's a great idea. So I left that meeting and just got to thinking, how do we do this? And my first thought was to create a committee. And of course, the committee had to be made up of language, of employers, our language companies, and the academics. So I reached out to Winnie, she joined. We have a very strong ALC Bridge committee, and it is represented by both language companies and academics, I'm very proud to say. And I will be delighted to, my friend Sue Ellen spoke very strongly about other academic partners, and it's true, there are many. And through ALC Bridge, we heard earlier from Kenya from Carnegie Mellon. They've been fantastic partners for us. We were launched back in 2019, and then the pandemic came. And so actually having Zoom, thank you, Summer, we've been able to actually be so lively and so relevant all these years in having meetings like this with the fantastic partners that we developed. And the partners that we're talking about are Carnegie Mellon, New York University, Cornell. We had a big Cornell launch. Rutgers Newark is very active. Kent State, BYU, Salem State. It goes on and on and on. And it's growing. And this fall, they've just about exhausted me. So I am happy to be on a large forum today, because what we need, everybody, what we need is resources. We've got jobs, the academics have got students, we can do this, but we've got to be visible, known, accessible, and used.
Yeah, 2019, that blows my mind but thank you for taking that initiative, to all of the people who put that forum together in 2019. And I know there is so much work to be done. Lucretia, from your perspective, prepping for this panel, you told us that there are state-owned universities in Latin America that are more or less reluctant to collaborate with private companies. So it's kind of like the opposite of what Kathleen was saying. And just from your perspective, what are there partnerships, or like, how do we help those reluctant state-owned universities? How do we bridge that gap? Or what are some ideas?
This is something very, very strange that happened a couple of weeks ago. We had a visit from Carol Velandia, and she came to Argentina to talk about language access and inclusion in language. And the state-owned university was super reluctant to help and be the host and help us, right? We see this over the years. It's very, very strange. And we don't understand why this is happening. But yeah, this is just because it comes from a translation company organizing all this. I think private companies should keep on doing this because we need to contribute to the community. We can't just stop because we don't have help from the universities. We can collaborate with other private companies. We can talk to other organizations. And we also have to keep on trying, again, because these kind of things are very good for everybody, and I really think we should continue on doing them. Just try to find a way, without the universities if they can't be of help.
Yep, 100% agree. We just have to keep moving forward, right? Because like Kathleen said, I mean, as everybody acknowledges, there is so much talent, and there's people all over the world who didn't even go to school for anything like this, but who are contributing very successfully to our industry. And so this is, like Charles says, the first of many conversations, and certainly nothing that we can accomplish all at once. So Winnie, from your perspective, and again, tell us, I hate to say it, we all know you, right? But like you are a household name for sure in our industry. So tell us again a little bit about your background at Miss, right? And like how in your experience, it's not necessarily about linguists or the linguistic community, but like really from like everybody in the what I call the supply chain. Like how can we do better? Like what are some areas that Miss, if nothing else, that Miss is focusing on bridging this gap?
Yeah. So, our colleague, I love this, our colleague said, there cannot be seniors without juniors. So really bringing up the next generation of colleagues is something of great interest to me. I worked in the language on the business side for 25 years. And so my role now here at Miss is a career advisor, right, to help students launch into the industry. And at the same time, also what's also make my job very interesting is all the changes that's happening in the world and in our industry. My students are sick of me saying the job you're gonna have in 5 years may not even exist yet, right? So we're dealing with a lot of changes. And I think I see some concrete steps that we can help bring up our early career colleagues. The first is, as Diego said earlier, right? We need to shape the expectation of our early career colleagues that the language industry today and the language industry in the future is not your parents' language industry anymore. We know technology will disrupt the labor force, and so they need skills that are not required just a few years ago. And Carrie, in her presentation, she shared with us one of the job ads from the insurance company, right? Recruiting for optimizing somebody to optimize your company's language model. Now, in my knowledge, your typical language department in higher ed will not teach that course, right? So is it about the language department changing their curriculum, or is it about informing the students to go look for that content? I don't have the answer, but the reality is we need to know what's needed in the future is not quite how we've been handling it, right? And actually, as I was in this session, I received a LinkedIn message from one of my alum. He's attending a Unicode workshop today in Silicon Valley. And he wrote to me, Winnie, it's such a delight to see so many Miss students. He said it was a surprise to see so many students in this workshop, right? So I'm glad my students have that growth mentality, seeking out things that they may not be familiar with. So I think that's the first one. Let's help shape our colleagues' expectation of what skills are needed. Then the second point is, I think it's incumbent on all of us who have been in the industry or established in the industry to name those skills. I know everybody's trying to figure it out, but we need to start naming those skills, right? Be as concrete as possible. And so having this kind of discussion is really helpful. And then finally, once we name those skills, let's don't wait. Let's don't wait for each other. The language companies, professional associations, and academia, we may not be able to create a degree program right from the start, but let's start creating workshops and courses to start training those skills. So it's an evolutionary process, right? So those, I think, that some of the concrete steps that we can start taking without complete clarity yet.
I think you hit on so many good points. I'm going to dig a little deeper before I go to Summer next. So Summer's our panelist that represents the buyer side, the client side, right? But in what you were saying, Winnie, and I know in some of our prep notes, you were talking about this last piece here, which is like enhancing your career, the mobility, the growth, the fact, the truth that 5 years from now, your future role doesn't even exist yet. Are there, and I loved your 3 strategies. Are there any other, in addition to the workshops and the buyers, the vendors, the associations all getting together, do you have any other ideas around training or coaching or mentoring, or does MISS specifically or any other academia, institutions, do they offer anything else along that? And then Summer, I'm going next.
Yeah, I think most of the higher ed institutions have an office similar to my office, the career office, right? They are career advisors. And I think it's really making sure that the career advisors kind of stay in touch with the industry, and they may not have the answers to say, okay, Kathleen, you should be going into this career path, but serving as a resource, showing options, and helping students think through their professional goals, their personal goals, and their financial goals, right? All of those together, and to work with them on creating their career strategy. And I think this is perhaps unique to the United States compared to other countries. In our country, we have a student loan debt problem, right? On average, somebody earning a BA degree, bachelor's degree, they graduate with a $30,000 debt. On average, somebody with a master's degree, they graduate with a $60,000 debt. So by the time they finish the MA degree, they're carrying $100,000 debt. So that financial piece is critically important that what we're dealing with in the United States. So looking at professional, personal, and financial goals together holistically is very important.
Yeah, I'm going to come to you next, Kathleen, but let me flip over to Summer to give this. Thank you so much for that, Winnie. I think you are really right. John Rixdorf, he reached out to me not too long ago because somebody in one of his classes could be potentially a salesperson, and maybe they didn't think of that as a career for themselves. And it really is like the idea of keeping a pulse on what the industry at large needs, and then what your students, their skill sets are. I really liked when you kind of drew that analogy for us. So Summer, not to throw you under the bus here, and since you're the representative from the buyer side, client side, when we talk about talent and the shortage of talent, and how you buy, vendors or clients, the tech companies, right? You're hiring in droves now. You're letting go in droves also, but you're hiring these internal globalization teams, more or less, right? And so from your perspective, what is some of the skill sets, or like the diversity of skills and experiences? Like how do you see this conversation impacting, for better or for worse? Probably for better, the client side, the talent.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when client-side companies like us, Zoom, when we look for talents, we usually have our eyes on a couple of things. So first of all, most important is we want someone with a solid technical background. So someone who can handle some complex tasks like building the project structures and talking tech with engineers. For example, some of the project I'm doing, like I'm doing a new language launch. So I need to talk to engineers, developers, project owners, and also like building up the infrastructure of the team. And second, I think, which I feel really important, is the excellent communication skills. Those are the key. So we need people who can bridge the gap between different teams, like product owners, developers, and also in-country teams. So when these folks transit to language service companies and they bring in a mix of technical expertise and some excellent communication abilities. So I think those gonna enrich the skills pool in the company. And moreover, When these individuals shift to a vendor side, I feel they bring a unique advantage. So their experience from the client side, projects gives them kind of profound understanding of client expectations and requirements. So it can enable them to provide a kind of superior service. So these insights allow them to offer solutions tailored to the client's need. Yeah, that's the 2 points. Technical background and communication skills.
Yeah, I mean, it's a panel in and of itself. That's a whole presentation for a conference per se, or it'd be a really great white paper or article on LinkedIn. So Kathleen, I do want to hear what you had to say, and then I want to also, I think the good bridging of the gap, this is a great theme, is when thinking about the phrase language matters, and everything that we've talked about from students to employers and the education system, how can we advocate? How can everyone at large advocate for the language services industry? In addition to remembering, if you do remember what you were going to say. When
Kristen, if I may, I do remember.
Okay, love it. Yeah,
and I'd like to mention it because I think it's important while we're still on the topic of what can we do and how can we reach out to a broader audience. And thank you, Summer, for your comments. I mean, it's just so fantastic. When we've been going, when I say we, ALC Bridge, we've been going on campus virtually in the formats of webinars and Zoom meetings just like this. And we always emphasize to the academic partner, we employers are looking for people who have, it's wonderful if they have some language skills, but we're really looking for the other skills. You mentioned two, technical and communication skills. We make an effort to say we're not just looking for language majors. We as an industry are looking for the much broader talent to come and work in our companies. And so I think it's very, very an important message. And the other thing that our committee has decided for 2024 is we're going to be loud and proud. We've been doing all these years of coming on campuses and giving our speech, introducing the industry, talking about our stories, our jobs, all the range of careers that we have. But we've been doing it pretty much one-on-one like this. And what the committee has said is in 2024, we have to go to job fairs because we are an industry. And the campuses, the academics have said to us, other industries come on campus and come to our job fairs. Well, we're going to come in 2024. And everything that you guys can do to help us, we've got to make it happen. We have to be present so that the students can see, oh yeah, this is a place for me to consider having a job in. And no, I'm not at all worried about whether or not AI is going to replace us. It's not going to replace all of us human beings all at once. So in the meantime, we need good, well-trained, experienced people working in a multilingual world, which is what we really have today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's an amazing answer because you kind of answered the question anyway, which is how do we spread awareness of the industry? Do you have any other thoughts on that? Or, I mean, that's a huge thought, like job fair.
That's my big thought. And I begin with thanking Charles. Because today at 12 noon, I was supposed to be, along with Winnie, attending our monthly meeting for our ALC Bridge committee. I consulted with the committee members. They said, go for the larger audience, Kathleen. So thank you, Charles.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you, Charles. Lou, from your perspective, spreading awareness of the industry, even in your world, literally and figuratively, not to put you on the spot, but we've talked about so many, like these job fairs or workshops or wrote like Carrie, I loved your idea. Like, let's put it all on a shared drive and share these resources. Right. So like Lou in Latin America, maybe specifically, like, do you have any other ideas top of mind of how to continue to spread awareness?
Okay, I think the thing here is basically that not everybody is technical savvy and also a linguist and also have great communication skills. In Latin America, in opposite of what's happening in the US and in English-speaking countries, it's not that students here are decreasing of, translation, localization, PMing, also localization engineering. In Argentina, for example, there are more people studying English and translation than ever. And we also see this in other countries, like in Brazil, in Eastern European countries, in Asia, in Africa, and so on. So I think that in these countries, knowing English or other languages, this is, I think Mariana Guedes mentioned this in the Q&A, it's considered prestigious, right? And we can find good jobs if we know another language. I found a job as a project manager and a project coordinator. I think maybe this is one of the reasons why people are not studying these careers in English-speaking countries. It's basically because we are expecting people to know everything, to be left brain and right brain kind of people. And we can't be all, you know? So yes, basically all of what Kathleen mentioned, Winnie, Carrie, we have to keep on spreading the word. This is a fantastic industry. This is an amazing industry. We are very cool. So we should keep on, you know, encouraging people to join us.
Well, we have +2 more Earthside now that your twins are 6 months old. So give them a few more. Give them a few more.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, I mean, I could ask questions all day. I have another question for Winnie and Summer. I just want to do a time check with Jorgelina, Charles. Okay, so if you're still in the audience, thank you for hanging around. Put your thoughts and questions in the Q&A and give me indications otherwise, but let's shift it a little just to wrap up and talk not necessarily about like wages, but also a little bit about wages. So Summer, from your perspective, competitive salaries, benefits on the client side. I mean, it's a little controversial, right? But I really loved your pointers of like the communication, and Lucrecia talked about some of that right now. But it's like, how can, with the language services providers listening right now, how can LSPs remain competitive for top talent if they don't have the deep pocketbooks? Like maybe there's other benefits you're getting that the industry, the language services providers, you know, could add, and that wouldn't tank their bottom line. But I don't know, just again, it's a little controversial, but like, how does the LSP side of the house bring talent like you over to their side?
That's a really tricky question. In the end, I feel cash is the king. You know, like talents with technical background, they always look for more cash, more benefits. If language service providers, they aim to attract and retain high quality talents, especially they have like technical background, they must provide the right pay and benefits. So when I interview some candidates from the vendor side, their motivation for switching to client side is the pay, and the average they stand to increase their pay, I would say 2 to 3 times. So that's a big gap. So if an LSP cannot match the big bucks offered on the client side, I feel there's still a chance they can play their cards right. So firstly, I think they can offer employee a clear path of growth, showing them where they can go in their careers within the company, like in 1 year or 2, and mentorship programs and ongoing learning opportunities can be a real game changers. And also specialized training in high demand areas or unique language can, make the employee stand out. And focusing on a specific niche become the go-to expert in a certain industry or language can also attract clients and create a stable job environment for the employees. Yeah, I think it's not only about the paycheck, it's about offering an exciting journey and constant learning and a chance to become a real pro in the field. So that's what keeps top talent around.
You're right. I mean, I coach a lot of organizations on culture. So I think, you're right there. And it is allowing them also, if the LSPs, I mean, cash is king. So I love that, right? Very honest. But there's this whole notion right now that's happening across all industries. I'm even talking to a university about personal branding within the organization, right? And allowing employees and teaching them how to create a brand within the brand and allowing them the wings to thrive with that. Because I think as people, as this industry or as the world has become virtual and we're connected kind of face to face more than ever, it's really important that there are other benefits that will, LSPs or anybody in the supply chain, a translator starting their own business, looking to make it their first hire. There's other benefits that you can offer. So I'm glad that you highlighted that. Winnie, to close out the panel, I'm half tempted to say, like, what are your closing thoughts? Because I know you intersect throughout the ecosystem at all these various parts, but I will say that, and I'll also say, so what are your closing thoughts on this whole conversation at large? But then also, like, how can we ensure that no matter what role you play in the ecosystem, that people feel valued and that they feel that there is sustainable long-term growth in their career?
As a career advisor, right? What I always tell my students is reinvention is important. If you want to have a 30, 40-year career, the day and age of you entering into an organization and work for 30 years, get your gold watch and retire, it's long gone, right? So we have to keep reinventing ourselves. So I think that's the mindset. And at the same time, as we face disruption in the labor force, I think a segment of our ecosystem that's facing a huge amount of disruption is the linguist population, translators, and the interpreters, right? And they are facing unprecedented pressure in terms of how they work and the compensation. I'll just quote a survey that was conducted by ELISE, right, the European Language Industry Survey. In the last several years, they have learned through their survey that 60% of the linguists say that they do not make enough to make a living from their language work. They have to find other work. And it's especially challenging for early career colleagues. Based on their survey, only 30% of our linguist colleagues with less than 2 years of experience make enough to make a living. So that has long-term implications. If they don't make enough, right, only 30% can make enough in the first 2 years. What happens? They leave the industry. right? And so I think this is a big, definitely for another discussion, a big topic. And I'm glad we have client-side representation here. I think fundamentally language services is fundamentally a human service, right? When you're procuring a human-powered service, if you approach it like buying paper or buying a desk, right, you expect efficiency or discount year over year. With humans, it goes the other way, right? So I think we as a field, as an industry, we need to change the narrative with our clients, like Summer, right? The way we think about procurement, the way we think about efficiency needs to be different from procuring goods, right? And if our LSP colleagues can make decent margin, right, then that gives them better ability to share the benefits with the linguists that we all care a lot about. So I think that's a broader topic for another time.
I think there's so many subtopics within this topic that we could definitely spend hours on. Okay, so in the interest of time, thank you all so much, Charles and Jorgelina. Jorgelina, should we bring Zoe off mute if she wants to ask her question? I cannot do that. Okay. And then let's see, otherwise, thank you so much. And we probably only have time for like one or so more, but okay, Zoe, if you can, yep, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for letting me giving me this chance to speak a little bit about this. And hi, Winnie and Charles, and I'm sorry, I know a lot of folks here, and it's nice to see you all. I think Winnie actually touched up on a lot of this, and thank you because I think she's got a lot of the knowledge in the industry and on the supplier side. And I think this is a bigger topic for folks who care about this industry to focus on. And I know that Ronaldo had started a movement about, for linguists to ask for more money. And it's not as simple as that, because at the end of the day, we can always find people who are willing to work cheaper to get the work done. But when that is there, how do you have this conversation with the client saying, well, we really need to be asking for this price for the service that we're going to give you? No, the client will just go to another vendor. And so how do we educate from the bottoms up to let them understand and convince them this is a worthy effort? What will they gain in the long run? It's going to be a long-term education, and once that is an open dialogue towards that way, then will we be able to confidently convince parents and their students, their kids, that yes, there is a future, there is a career path in this worthy industry. And I'm saying this with a lot of hesitation, because like Stefan said, with AI looming, it is scary for people to say, hey, you should be going into this field, because I can't tell you if 5 years from now, this work is still going to be there for us. But I believe that we should be, I wouldn't say optimistic about the outlook of the industry, but I believe that with so many bright minds in here, we should be able to figure out how we can help people navigate this. So there is a future 5 years, 10 years, 30 years from now for people who are passionate about languages and what this can do for people who need a different way to communicate with, people who don't speak their languages. And I think there are so many things that technology still can't do. And that's my hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Winnie, I was going to say, does anybody have a response or commentary on that?
Yeah.
And then in the interest of time, maybe we
Yeah.
might have one more time for
Sure.
one more.
I am hopeful. I think two things, right? One of my old bosses used to say revenue solves everything. So let's help the language services companies be able to create their narratives and present their values to the client so that we're not, when the RFP comes, we're not treated like buying paper. Okay, so that's the first one. Second thing is Renato started a movement to ask for more money. I'm going to start a movement, name those skills, right? Things are going to change and our colleagues are going to have to do different things, but let's continuously name those skills and make learning opportunities accessible. Then we can all grow. Thank you.
Yes, I love this. Charles, again, thank you so much for introducing this concept, and Carrie for your idea, and very powerful. Do we have time for one more, Charles? Yes, okay. Jorgelina, so last question, everybody, and then when we wrap up, Charles will let you know where to send the rest of the questions and how this conversation can continue. But Nectaria, Jorgelina is going to bring you off of mute if you want to ask your question.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this session. I identified with pretty much everything I heard today. And I don't know if we have enough time. It's a kind of a long question. I was just wondering about the middle generation of professionals we have in our industry that are found between, a tough place and the rock, and they have a lot of experience, and maybe they lack a little bit of technology skills. I myself am with 2 decades of experience as a translator. I'm back to school now to do a master's degree, and I am thrilled that I'm back to a learning mode, but I also want to make sure that I look good on paper and that my CV can prove that I am employable. On the other hand, presenting myself as a 25-year freelancer is not the best trusting gene I can give to interviewers. Everybody is questioning, can you make a career change now, that late, and switch back to a full-time employee in a corporate environment when you have been a freelancer for that long. So, sometimes I am, discouraged to continue my journey at 52 years old.
Thank you so much. Anybody have any closing comments on that, or from the panelists, anything else before we officially hand it over to Charles? Please, Kathleen.
Tania, she has a question.
I just wanted to say, going back to what Winnie was saying about name the skills, I mean, that is something that I encounter a lot, and it ties to what I was talking about before with people having this, people know how to speak a language and they just don't think of what it takes to speak a language and live in a culture and express it. And so I find that a lot of times there are a lot of assumptions made about who can be hired to do interpreting or translating because they're a native speaker. And so I think it's really important for the language companies to be able to name the skills. This is the kind of qualification these people have that somebody else might not have. So being a native speaker is not necessarily enough, much less a heritage speaker. So I think all of those things are invisible to the person who's looking for a translator. All they're thinking of, oh, well, this is natural. This is like, second nature to them. There's very little about it that's second nature, because there's a lot of analysis that goes into it besides just knowing the language and being comfortable with one place, one culture where that language is spoken, one version of that language is spoken. And that's something that gets lost, shall I say, I hate to say it, lost in translation. I mean, it really does. So I do really think that there has to be a way of quantifying and qualifying the different skills that go into being able to provide a service that someone needs.
Wow. Thank you so much, everybody. We're at time. Thank you, Winnie. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Summer. Thank you, Lucrecia. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Jorgelina, for putting this all together. Thank you, Kristen, for moderating. What a great presentation. What a great panel. We could have talked for hours. We could have gone on, which is precisely why the TBO Talent Forum is meant to be taking place on a monthly basis. And our next TBO Talent Forum will be in the second week of December. The theme that we have set for this one is work-life balance in the localization industry. If someone comes up with an even better topic than that, then we'd certainly be willing to possibly modify it. We are looking for panelists and for a speaker, and we're looking for people to suggest topics for future TBO Talent Forums. So just reach out to Jorgelina or myself. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what your input and your ideas. So bring it on. I'm really excited. Thank you so much to everybody who made this happen today. It was our first time, a little technical glitch for the first 3 minutes, but we got through it. Thank you, Summer, for your support there. And this was a wonderful experience, and I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.